thanks everybody for coming. There's a lot of people. So the free food is upstairs if you got lost. Anyway, so we are Trezor. We are the original hardware wallet maker. We actually started 10 years ago, and when we built the first Trezor Model 1, and we lately introduced some new devices, which I actually want to talk about today. Basically, how we did it in very, very practical way, sort of as a case study of how we think about hardware. I mean, software is eating the world, so most people work actually in software-related products. So that's why I thought it would be nice to talk about hardware. And because we are a company that listens to user feedback, when we introduced Trezor Safe 3 last year, I actually read this comment on the announcement video, and apparently somebody didn't like my pants, so they said, "Those pants, we are too early." So today I'm wearing different pants. We listen to your feedback, guys, so keep it coming. So our mission is to make Bitcoin security easy. It means to make self-custody very easy. There was actually a panel yesterday about whether users should start with hardware wallet as their first sort of security measure. I think they can, and that's what we are doing to basically onboard millions of users to self-custody in hardware wallets. That being said, there's this famous saying in the hardware wallet, it's just in any hardware actually industry, hardware is hard. And that's actually kind of the key point of this whole presentation, because I want to show you why it's hard and how we tackle the certain challenges of hardware development, hardware production at scale. So as I said, we've been around for basically 2/3 of the Bitcoin journey. We introduced Trezor Model 1 in 2014, and that device has been around for those 10 years, and we wanted to do a sort of facelift of this entry-level device. So who are the people we are making these Trezors for? Out of all the people in the world, there's estimated 500 million crypto users, out of which, shockingly for us hardware wallet makers, around 2% of all those crypto users are actually storing their private keys in hardware wallets. So that's a challenge for us, and also not just challenge, but also, of course, an opportunity to onboard millions and millions more and basically make this ratio much higher. So how do we even start with when we want to build new hardware wallet? Where do we start? As I already said, we start with the user feedback, which basically whatever you guys tell us, and with some insights from the market, such as I wanted to show you here. Basically, we want to target a bit more mainstream in a way that we want to onboard millions of users to hardware wallets. We actually, over the course of the next bull market, and we can discuss whether it's already starting or not, we want to sell more hardware wallets than we did in the whole history of the company. And that basically entails certain sort of requirements for these devices. So this one specific Trezor Safe 3 that we launched, it's an entry-level model. So it's basically, our marketing team would like to say affordable, but it's basically as cheap as possible. That's the reality. It has, USB-C connector, just like on a must-have. We added a secure element for additional level of security against physical attacks. And we also added the option to use a SHA-mirror backup, which is basically a way of splitting the seed in multiple shards and use it with Trezor Safe 3. And you can also add a passphrase directly on the device, which you could not have on Trezor Model 1. So as you can guess, we always start with basically the drawing board. So this is a very specific mood board of objects and consumer electronics devices that we liked, and that's where we started. We like this split sort of material feel to it. We played around with the transparency and etc. And as pretty much humans develop, in certain phases from, well, let's say, less smart to more smart. We also played around with certain hardware shapes, and basically we are prototyping a bunch of things, and we ended up with one shape that we like the most. And that's actually the Trezor Say 3 that you can now, actually check out at our booth and even buy, of course. So the next phase is, of course, prototyping in a way that we just, 3D print these things. And because it's quite important in the hardware that you really need to play around with these devices in your hand. It's not possible to just like make renders and do whatever in like Figma or any other design tool. It needs to be, it needs to be very physically present for you to make certain decisions. Just by the way, this is the first prototypes from those 10 years ago. So even our prototyping capabilities, I would say, improved quite dramatically. So let's look at some of the details of how what this device basically consists of and the key elements that we need to prototype and work on. The big part is the plastic housing itself. Just interestingly enough, you need a specific mold, which is basically like a form for the plastic. It's very expensive, and you basically build it in a way that you can produce millions of these plastics parts for future. Another one is the buttons itself. There's such a hassle to make them really with a nice haptic feedback, and that they are very stiff and not just wobbly, and etc. We will talk about it in a detail. Of course, the PCB and the display, that's the heart of the hardware wallet. And then we added the aluminum backplate, which is basically the back part of the device, and it has this very nice, almost I would say Apple-like feel to it. And all this needs to be done in a way that can be produced at scale, at a huge scale, because again, we are talking about millions of these devices, and the details matter in the whole assembly procedure. So everything needs to be automated, done in a very efficient way, so it's cost efficient. So we start, prototyping all these important parts, and you prototype and prototype and prototype. You try to optimize it for the best quality, but also, as I said, the production capability, so it's efficient in the production process. And all of this, it's quite costly because you do it with the suppliers usually abroad, and it's also very time consuming. So you end up, very close to the deadline, the certain launch date that you want to hit. Everything's fine, kind of, and you have to make the decisions. Ultimately, that leads to really awesome product. So once the proof of concept is done, and this is what we, what we liked, I would like to go over some details of this process. So as you could see on the device, so it's this unibody design, which basically the plastic part is just one part that you can see, and this is an example of a transmission light table, where basically you choose the plastics transparency based on what you basically like. So we are playing with certain density or darkness of the plastics, and we choose the one which covers nicely the PCB, so it has this very sleek and minimalistic looking design, and still, of course, you can read all the information from the hardware wallet display. As I already mentioned, just to sort of nail down the haptic feedback on the buttons is pretty tough one, and I think we did a pretty good job. So you can actually try it again on our booth, and this the buttons are super nice, and then let's start it. Then if we moving to the PCB, there's quite a huge part of this whole process is to, as I said, we were aiming for this minimalistic feel of the device, and just the difference between the the thickness. If it would be just 1 millimeter thicker, you would not get that sort of minimalistic feel to it. So it's quite important to be the PCB to be quite compact, and quite nice for the ultimate design that we were after. After this, you basically also have it, need to make it compliant with basically do certain tests on electrostatic discharge and electromagnetic interference, because otherwise you couldn't possibly. These tests needs to be done for us to be able to sell it, basically online and be sort of legally approved. So this is just a picture from the lab where where the devices are tested. Another kind of nice challenge, which seems like it's such a tiny detail, but just to make the USB connector very nice and stiff, so when you plug it in, it is there's no space into it, and it has this nice feedback when you plug in the device. Again, months of worth of R&D were put into this to make it super neat. So finally, for the backplate, so that's where we wanted to move this device, as I said, into this more consumer electronics mainstream, where it has this nice, nice design, and obviously we introduce these colors as well, because the Model 1 was just like black or white, so we want to introduce more colors, including the Bitcoin only version, which by the way sold out because it was a limited edition and sold out within 1 day, which was a pretty nice success. So this is an example how the backplates looked before they got finalized. We ran into some issues as well. You can see these cracks. So we ordered, I think it was like a 50K of these plates, and then we realized, oh fuck, there are these cracks, and we cannot really sell it. So we started kind of all over again the whole proof of concept to supplier loop, and we had to start again, and finally we got to a result that we really liked. Now coming to the whole assembly and production process. So again, it's really important for these devices for us to be able to produce them at huge quantities in a very efficient manner. So just quite topical example, Bitcoin price is pumping, our sales are super sort of correlated with the price, and we need to produce really hundreds of thousands of these devices over the course of sort of next months. So it needs to be sort of optimized in the production, that it is very efficient, and that we have strong suppliers and strong production companies that are reliable when we need to produce at heat scale. So this is an example of actually something called tester. So every single device basically gets tested for, and the firmware gets uploaded into the device. So not firmware, but the bootloader. So there's something that runs into the device from the production, and every single one is actually physically tested in the company. And then the fun doesn't start, because the packaging is honestly as complicated and as difficult to do from this whole process as the hardware itself. So we are looking for something that is sustainable, and that we can basically is recyclable, and we can recycle it. We also, of course, again looked at design that is nice and fresh, and sort of this mainstream consumer electronics feel to it, and it's still again cheap, and we are able to produce it in a very cost-efficient manner. And this is the end result that we came up with, again including the example of the Bitcoin only orange. So ultimately, the suppliers, as I said, are your partners. They interestingly enough, we are based in Czech Republic, and we honestly ran into some quality issues. And I'm no longer surprised. A lot of things get produced in overseas, because simply sometimes it's really hard to do it at these quantities. It's quite hard to do it in again cost-efficient manner and in the quantity that you would like. So I understand why a lot of companies are actually outsourcing it to these huge companies overseas, mainly China, Taiwan, etc. While we were working on the Trezor Safe 3, we also started working on a product and an accessory to which is, by the way, the most important thing of the whole security model, and that's the seed phrase. So Trezor Key Metal is I'm wrapping up. Is a seed phrase storage solution. It's made of it's stainless steel, and we didn't see any product like that on the market, so we built it ourselves. We had some original concepts that we actually ended up not liking, so we are they kind of ticked off all the requirements that we needed, but we didn't see the good design. And finally, when we started prototyping what is now today Trezor Key Metal, we really like the design as well. So again, this is an example of basically 3D printed Trezor Key Metal. We again put it in a high-end, a lab environment where we throw it in the fire while baking sausages at our offsite. And actually, here laughing is I'm very happy as a founder of the company, / maybe you guys know him. But if you see the detail here, not everybody kind of shared the happy sentiment of burning our new products. And this is one of our developers. It's a joke. That's a software guy. Anyway, so yeah, we took it out of the fire, and as you can see, it perfectly survives in terms of the information recorded in the steel. And the black thing connects to it is actually the paper that obviously got burned. So that's the advice for everybody to basically keep their seed phrases on ideally something like this in metal that doesn't burn. We also put it in really like a serious lab environment with some salty liquid, which it was put there for like more close to 500 hours, and it survives perfectly again. So again, we worked on some packaging that actually works as a sort of holder when you record your seed phrase into Trezor Key Metal, and this is the final result, including the sleeve and all the information on how to store your seed phrase. So that's it. That's Trezor Key Metal and Trezor Safe family. I like to say we are just getting started because we are actually going to introduce 2 more devices in near future. So yeah, stay tuned and thanks for listening in.